Hi, my name is Nicole Meister, and this is my SED 491 final presentation for Illinois State University. So who was my action plan developed for? I currently teach at the Preschool Family Education Center in Pekin, Illinois. It's an at-risk preschool program providing services for children 3 to 5 years old. We house 4 early childhood self-contained special education classrooms and 6 early childhood inclusion classrooms. My classroom structure is one of the inclusion classrooms. In my morning class, I have 15 general education students and 2 special education students. One student is identified as having a developmental delay due to social emotional delays as well as language delays. The second student is identified as having a developmental delay due to social emotional and academic delays. My afternoon class has 13 general education students and 3 special education students. 2 of the special education students are identified as having a developmental delay for social emotional and academic reasons. The third student has been identified as having an orthopedic impairment. The first goal of my action plan is to use effective practice to teach, implement, and monitor social skill development and meet the IEP goals of a student with a disability. The first action step under Goal 1 is to participate in responsive classroom training and implement it within my classroom. Responsive classroom is an evidence-based approach to education that focuses on the strong relationship between academic success and students' social-emotional learning. The goal is for educators to develop a positive social community within their classroom as well as the whole school environment. Teachers support students to be successful in and out of school through implementing 4 components of the responsive classroom: interactive modeling, teacher language, logical consequences, and interactive learning structures. I currently use the 4 components of a morning meeting. I greet my students when I sit down by saying, "Good morning, friends. I'm happy to see you came to school today," and they respond back. Then I have a sharing activity where students turn and talk to each other about something that I've prompted them to discuss. During that time, I write my morning message on the board. When the students are done talking, we share out about what they were talking about, and I read my morning message. My morning message can be, "Good morning. Today, we are going to make pumpkin pie in a cup. Love, Miss Meister." After the morning message, the students participate in a group activity. And this is a song where we greet all of our friends, and it gets the students up and moving and clapping their hands. And we really make sure to focus on making eye contact as we greet and say the name of each of our students. Next component that I use of the responsive classroom is the refill station. You can see the image on the right-hand side of the screen. The refill station is an area where students go when they're feeling overwhelmed or upset by strong emotions or just need a break. They go and sit on the pillow and they take deep breaths where they smell in the flower and they blow out the candle. There is a prompt for the students to complete this 5 times and continue if needed. When we notice the students are feeling calmer, they either choose to come out and join the group again and participate in the classroom community, or a teacher will go over and help them identify their feelings and discuss what they could do differently to avoid having those strong feelings next time. At the bottom, there are options for the student that they can select from to come back and be a part of the classroom community. Some of them include taking a walk with the teacher, playing with Play-Doh, asking a friend to play, or building with blocks. The second action step is to implement the second step social emotional learning program, which was developed by the Committee for Children to transform classrooms into supportive, successful learning environments. This directly relates to the principles and concepts of the responsive classroom structure. The goal is to help children identify, express, and manage their emotions. Each week, I select one card out of the box. We use the color photo to help discuss and identify how the characters are feeling and why we believe that they are feeling that way. Then I use the day 2 description on the back of the card and prompting to prompt the students and further discuss fair ways to play or what we can do to manage our emotions. We carry this over into free choice centers with skill practice with support from myself and my paraprofessional. The third action step under Goal 1 is to progress monitor students using Teaching Strategies Goal Assessment. The social emotional table in front of you has the objectives 1 through 3 and their subcategories. The blue lines are for the afternoon students going on to kindergarten, and the green lines are for the 3-year-olds that will be returning next year. I use this information as well as a documentation tally sheet to see what documentation I need to collect and record to meet the IEP goals of students with disabilities. The fourth and fifth action steps under Goal 1 is to work with the SWIP team and develop individualized lessons for students with disabilities. The SWIP team participated in the summer responsive classroom training provided by the district. They've been a resource for me to develop appropriate social emotional activities that align with the responsive classroom and second step programs. We have been provided several books on morning meeting ideas and energizers, as well as the SWIP team has created a Google Doc folder containing responsive classroom strategies, language, and even morning meeting ideas. The SWIP team has also helped in developing individualized lessons that connect to the responsive classroom and second step programs. I've utilized that as well as Teaching Strategies Goal Assessment. And when I do this, as I'm creating my lesson plans, I have the opportunity to select an activity that's already been made by the Teaching Strategies Gold program. When I do that, as you can see on the screen, I would select the objective or dimension for the class, and then from there up pops 3 different activities. As you can see, these all relate to students' social emotional development. The first one focuses on playing together. The second one is making a mural collaboratively. And the third one is initiating play and can I play with you? At the bottom, you can make activity notes, and I put in who I'm going to complete the small group activity with, who the students are. From there, I document the student responses through observation and add it to their online portfolios for further analysis. Goal 2 of my action plan is to plan, implement objectives using state standards with visual supports, direct instruction, and modeling to meet the IEP goals of a student with a disability. The first and second action steps under Goal 2 were to complete the visual support and modeling training courses from the Affirm website, which is the autism-focused intervention, resources, and modules. So these modules are evidence-based practices that highlight important instructional components and how to implement them with fidelity in your classroom. The website is really focused on working with students with autism spectrum disorder, but these evidence-based practices that they have can meet the needs of all students with disabilities. So both modules helped me learn what they are and how to effectively implement them with my students in the preschool setting. The visual supports I've used in creating a first then board and using a visual timer. I also learned that the best way to use a visual support is to stand behind the student and hold the visual support in front of them and cue them. By doing this, the student doesn't become dependent on you standing in front of them looking for a prompt or a cue. Modeling, a lot of what we do in the preschool program is modeling. So it just kind of briefly went over what I'm already doing and helped me learn a few new skills to help students with disabilities. Action step 3 and 4 under goal 2 are to progress monitor with teaching strategies goal and develop individualized lessons where students with disabilities are demonstrating their greatest deficits. These two really intertwine and go together because teaching strategies gold is our observational assessment tool and provides a continuum for each objective. So in the picture on the screen, you can see that there is a continuum and there are color bands. For my students to be developmentally appropriate, my morning students who are 3 years old are the green color band. And my students who are 4 years old, then transitioning into kindergarten, are blue color bands. And this is a social emotional objective for regulating their own emotions. You can see that the 3-year-olds need to accept redirection from adults, and they end with managing classroom roles and routines and transitions with occasional reminders, which is about the middle point of our 4-year-olds by the time they leave for kindergarten. I take this information, my observations, and I look at where I don't have documentation, and then I gather documentation through observations during play and small group session times or during large group readings. And then I take that information, the more detailed documentation of the observations, and I develop individualized lessons for my students. These can be in the areas of social emotional, physical, cognitive, language, literacy, and math. I do it based off of their IEP goals and where their deficit is the greatest. And from there, I can click in Teaching Strategies Gold Online, and they provide me with lessons and activities to meet those students' needs. Goal 3 of my action plan is to collaborate with parents to support the social emotional development of their child at home. The first and second action steps under Goal 3 were to progress monitor students and invite families into the school setting. I used the Teaching Strategies Goal to document and progress monitor my students. The form in front of you shows you the child, an objective number, and how many counts of documentation I have for each student. This provides me with information to plan appropriate lessons to meet the needs of students and see what students I need to collect observational data on during free choice centers. I then also take this progress monitoring observational data and generate family conference forums that I provide parents with during parent-teacher conferences, and we develop next steps to individualize their child's learning. I invite families into the school in a couple ways. The first way I do this is through family hour, which is when parents or grandparents or family members are invited into the library where teachers model reading a story and using the responsive classroom strategies as well as the second step strategies during whole group and free choice centers. Parents have the opportunity to see you modeling them, but then also ask you questions about those programs and how to implement and expand that into the home. And I also provide an opportunity for parents to come in for parties and activities, as well as come and read to the class. So when the parent comes to read to the class, they come a little bit early and they play with the student. During this time, they see me and my paraprofessional providing students with individualized social emotional support or activity support in math or literacy. And then after that, the parents read a story to the students, and then the students get very excited and they would like the parent to read every book in the room, which is not possible, as we know, but the parents really enjoy coming in and reading to the class. The third action step under Goal 3 is second step at-home links. When I provide a second step social emotional lesson, I then print this at-home link and I send it home to parents. It provides parents with an explanation of what we did during the lesson time, how we extended it into playtime, and how they can extend it into their playtime at home. There is an image of what the card looked like with the students' names, and at the bottom, it provides parents with questions and prompts that they can then extend the learning into the home and make connections with their child. The second step program has increased many students' school successes and decreased their problem behaviors. At parent-teacher conferences, I had many parents discuss how they appreciate the at-home links and how they really use them to extend their child's learning of social emotional development and make the connections to school, and that they've seen a decrease in problem behaviors and they've seen an increase in their students' ability to manage their strong emotions. And one of our lessons that we did through second step is managing strong emotions and learning how to belly breathe. And then we connected it into the responsive classroom and the refill station. And many parents said that they were going to develop a refill station or area at home to then extend that school home link so their child can then continue to be successful at home as well as in school. My fourth and final goal of my action plan is to use effective progress monitoring strategies to inform instruction. Action step 1 and 2 under Goal 4 is to provide direct observation of students' learning and progress monitor student development using Teaching Strategies Gold. Direct observation is a way that I use to collect data aligned with the Teaching Strategies Gold objectives and the Illinois Early Learning Developmental Standards. I progress monitor each student, as I showed you above, by tallying and seeing what documentation I have and don't have. And then I use this information to lead further instruction and develop individualized lessons for students. The progress monitoring really goes hand in hand with that direct observation, because you can't have one without the other. Using Teaching Strategies Gold and in a preschool environment, the observations I take are in student social emotional, physical, cognitive, language, literacy, and math skills. I use observations during whole group, small group, and free choice center time. Many times the students want to participate in the small and whole group activities where it's easy for me to get those observations and documentation. It is much more difficult during those free choice center times when I'm looking for a specific objective for a specific child, and I might need to foster a learning activity or pull out certain materials to get the student to demonstrate where they fall on the continuum so I can gather my observational data for their Teaching Strategies Gold portfolio. The third action step under Goal 4 is to develop and provide individualized lessons to students with and without disabilities. I provide these in the areas of social emotional, physical, cognitive, language literacy, and math development. I use my Teaching Strategies Gold progress monitoring data and observations to then see where students have the greatest deficit. And every Friday, I provide small group instruction on the areas where students are struggling the most. So I really individualize their lessons and their learning. I get out new materials and we sit down at the table and we practice. I model and they practice the skill, and then I have them implement it themselves, and I see over time whether or not the students are gaining a better understanding of the skill that we were focusing on, or if we need to go back and then I need to provide more individualized lessons. The lessons that I provide can be found from Teaching Strategies Gold. They do provide you with individualized lesson plans to really focus in on specific learning objectives, or I know teachers' favorites. I go to Pinterest or Teachers Pay Teachers, and I've really provided students with really good learning activities. Or the best go-to is you go to your colleagues and ask them what they have for it, or a specific objective, or what they've done to help expand their students' learning on an objective area. So that is what I've done with the individualized lessons, and it usually turns into not only am I working with and providing intervention on Fridays for the students with the greatest deficits in the objective area, but all students want to participate in it. And I say it's great practice. And so once I'm done providing individualized instruction, I leave the materials out on the table and I allow all students to participate in the activity while I'm walking around the room collecting observations, and I go back over and I discuss with them what they're doing. The third annotated bibliography focused on Goal 1. Ashdown and Bernard in 2012 focused their research on if explicit instruction in social and emotional learning skills could benefit the social emotional development, well-being, and academic achievement of young children. The results concluded there was a significant difference between students who received social emotional training versus students in the control group. The authors went on to discuss the importance of social emotional learning programs on young children's social competence. Using explicit instruction along with social emotional learning programs is the most effective way to improve students' social emotional growth and development. Although they discussed how future research needs to explore the long-term effects of social emotional learning programs on children's social competence. The second article was written by Gersham in 2015. This article was a meta-analytic review that explored evidence-based social skills interventions for students at risk for EBD. Early studies found social skills interventions and approaches improved peer relations. The study went on to discuss how 69% of participants in the social skills intervention groups improved their social skills, while only 35% of the participants in the control group improved their social skills. Providing positive peer play interactions or groups promotes students with disabilities' positive social emotional development. Some of these skills include following rules, cooperation, and getting along with others. The author found that future research needs to examine distinguishing acquisition and performance deficits and providing Tier 3 interventions to meet the needs of students with EBD characteristics. The third article was written by Ledford and Woolry in 2013. The purpose of this study was to examine peer modeling of academic and social behaviors during small group instruction. Small group instruction provided students with multiple opportunities, especially students with disabilities, to observe social behaviors performed by their peers. Social skills training can increase the use of social behaviors for students with disabilities. Results of the study found that after direct small group instruction, participants displayed sharing skills across activities a mean percentage of 99% of the time. Prior to direct instruction, the participants did not exhibit any sharing or thanking behaviors. The authors believe small group instruction minimizes distractions and competing behaviors, allowing students with disabilities to focus on social skills development. Future research needs to study the teaching of social skills behaviors using peer models during direct instruction. The fourth article was written by Tomley, O'Brien, Rivers, and Shapesies in 2017. The purpose of this article was to examine the teaching of emotional intelligence in early childhood settings. Students' emotions can impact their attention, memory, learning, ability to build relationships, as well as their physical and mental health. It's important to develop students' emotional intelligence because children with higher emotional intelligence can engage in school activities longer, build positive relationships, and regulate their behaviors and earn higher grades. There are 5 skills that can be taught to increase a child's emotional intelligence using the acronym RULER. R, recognizing emotions in oneself and others. U, understanding the cause and consequence of emotions. L, labeling emotions accurately. E, expressing emotions in ways that are appropriate for the time, place, and culture. And last, R, to regulate their emotions. Using RULER, children can use effective strategies to regulate their emotions, such as taking deep breaths, having private self-talk, stepping back and using a refill station, or seeking adult support. Teachers can extend RULER into daily classroom management practices by relating it to personal experiences, using read-alouds to guide students in discussing their feelings and feeling words, and using appropriate responses. The last article was written by Whitney in 2018. This article discusses interventions for young children with and at risk for emotional and behavioral disorders. The authors discussed how social competence is both appropriate behaviors and social skills. Students' acquisition of these social skills and appropriate behaviors can impact their later academic achievement and life success. Children displaying characteristics of EBD need Tier 2 and/or 3 interventions. They have broken down this into 4 easy steps. Step 1, establish the environment. Make sure that it is consistent and that teachers alter their own behavior by incorporating precision and high probability requests or using behavioral momentum. Step 2, direct instruction of social emotional skills. This helps students develop self-regulation skills by assisting them to become more aware of their emotions that they are experiencing. Step 3 is providing students with an opportunity to apply the social skills that you've taught them. Step 4 is a follow-up. It's important to teach students how to self-monitor and provide clear, immediate feedback to them so they understand that they are doing it correctly. Early identification is extremely important when working with students displaying behavioral deficits. Using explicit instruction can help reduce or eliminate these behaviors. All of these articles support my goal 1 in meeting the needs of students with disabilities, social emotional deficits, and using structured playgroups, social skills training, and direct instruction. So what have I learned from the Illinois State University Special Education Master's Program? First, that student first language is important because a disability does not define a student and their abilities. I also learned that collaboration is a key element in providing effective special education services. And this collaboration is with colleagues, service team members, as well as parents. The collaboration needs to include collaboration on goals, documentation, and identifying the needs of the student. I also learned that parents are key elements in special education. They have the most knowledge about the student, and it's important to provide them opportunities to express their feelings as well as contribute to the development of their child's IEP. This program has influenced my role as a special educator. First, I'm much more aware of the language I use with colleagues and parents, especially during IEPs. I make sure that parents are comfortable with the goals that I have written and understand the legal language that is used in the IEP. I have learned to view students' behavior very differently. I don't look at it and think, oh, anymore. I look at it and think, gee, what is the function of their behavior? Are they trying to avoid or escape? And then I, from there, try to identify effective evidence-based practices to meet the needs of the student to change the function of their behavior. I've also been influenced in the way I develop and understand lesson plans and using the backwards design to meet the needs of all students, not just students with disabilities. A career goal, I would like to continue to be a special education / early childhood inclusion teacher. I enjoy working with children 3 to 5 years old, and it is really my niche, and I understand developmentally what is appropriate for them, and I can really connect with parents on how to meet the needs of their child. So what can I do to improve myself? I need to continue to research evidence-based practices to meet the needs of all students, not just students with disabilities. And I need to continue to participate in district summer courses to expand my understanding of district initiatives such as the responsive classroom. Thank you for listening, and best of